Everyone has an origin story. For Scott Morrison, it begins in 2007, with a young Scomo being soundly defeated in the Liberal pre-selection race for Cook. But as you'll hear, the crushing defeat was not the end, but rather the beginning of Scomo. So how do we know this? Outgoing Liberal Senator Fierravanti-Wells has unloaded on the Prime Minister overnight, taking everyone on a trip down memory lane that aligns rather well with a story Sam Dastyari told back in 2018. So sit back and relax as the Senator does to Scomo what Ripley did to the aliens.
Many in this place would be aware of the history I've had with Scott Morrison. Let me give some clarity and context to that history so there can be no misunderstanding. He is adept at running with the foxes and hunting with the hounds, lacking the moral compass and having no conscience. His actions conflict with his portrayal as a man of faith.
Our nation needs more prayer and more worship.
He has used his so-called faith as a marketing advantage. When Morrison worked for Tourism Australia, he backstabbed his minister, Fran Bailey. Eventually, he was fired from the position. As State Director of the New South Wales Division of the Liberal Party, Morrison honed his manipulative skills when overseeing the Wentworth pre-selection to unseat Peter King. About 120 membership applications were rejected to help Turnbull get selected, the person Morrison ultimately backstabbed.
This is my leader.
There you go.
And I'm ambitious for him.
Yeah, good on you. Thanks, Scomo.
Morrison might profess to be Christian,
Amen.
but there was nothing Christian about what was done to Michael Toke. When Morrison made his run for the seat of Cook, there were several hopefuls, including Toke, Fletcher and Coleman. Toke won the ballot on the first round with 84 votes. Morrison got 8 votes. Having lost the ballot, Morrison and his cronies went to Sam Dastyari,
Shanghai Sam,
to get dirt on Toke, who had been in the Labor Party for a period of time whilst at university. This dossier of anecdotes was weaponised and leaked to the media to the point where Toke's reputation was destroyed.
Finally, how Scott Morrison actually became a Member of Parliament. Scott Morrison went for pre-selection in a very safe Liberal seat of Cook, which is the Shire. He beat a guy called Michael Toke to get the pre-selection. But in the first count, when they first had the ballot and first had the numbers, Michael Toke got 82 votes, Scott Morrison got 8. Straight after the pre-selection, there was a media and an internal Liberal Party campaign to overturn the result, and it got overturned and Morrison got made the candidate. Scott Morrison's lieutenants, and I'm sure with Scott Morrison's knowledge, turned to the Labor Party and asked them to prepare the dirt file on his political opponent to be able to get rid of the guy and actually have him disendorsed as Liberal Party candidate. I know this because I was the one who put the file together. So one of the 2 reasons they stated when they got rid of this guy as the candidate was, quote, Mr. Toke covered up the extent of his involvement with Labor in the 1990s. Right? This guy was once a Labor Party member.
He was a Labor Party member,
Years
and then he swapped over to
By
Liberal.
2007, he went to Liberal Party. That happens from time to time.
Yeah.
They wanted to get rid of him. They needed to they wanted to try and show that he'd lied.
Right.
They'd asked the Labor Party, Morrison's people asked the Labor Party to put together a dirt file effectively on this bloke. I put it together. I went down to Golden Century Chinese restaurant, Sussex Street, Sydney, handed it over to Morrison's people, right? Morrison's factional lieutenants.
Yeah.
I mean, let's not, they then did, the bit that amazed me by it, the way they weaponised it, right? Mainly it was anecdotes about his involvement in the Labor Party, a few stories here and there. The way they weaponised it, they had decided, Scott Morrison was a really powerful guy in the Liberal Party. He used to be the state director of the Liberals. He was a big power broker in their party. The way they were able to use this information and the way they were able to weaponise it, there's no one pussyfooting around this. The PM only became a Member of Parliament because he used the Labor Party to knock off his political internal opponents. Wow. I've never seen that. I never thought he'd be PM. I never thought he'd be PM because I thought, this is always going to come out. I think the Prime Minister deserves to give this guy an apology. I've seen a lot of dirty things in politics.
This is dirty.
And pre-selections get very, very dirty. Right?
But you've never seen this happen before?
I've never had the Liberal Party come to us and ask for dirt to fight one of their own internal opponents. They called him a brain stacker. They went through his history. By the way, they dumped a whole bunch of media stories against him, which he sued and got a $100,000 settlement for afterwards. The thing is, and I've been saying this, I would never underestimate Scott Morrison. because I would never underestimate a guy who would turn to his political opponents to take out one of his own. A guy that will do that will do anything. This is why I never thought he'd be PM. I just thought, oh, well, the story of this pre-selection... By the way, Scott Morrison, to this day, will not ever speak of the pre-selection. The assassination they did, like, I've seen some brutal stuff in thing, but the fact that it even come to the late... I remember at the time, we were thinking, geez, this guy's ruthless. And, mate, to be honest, the file was mostly just anecdotes of his involvement. It wasn't even that much. It wasn't that much. But the way they weaponized it. Here is the proof. The information and the anecdotes they used about his involvement in the Labor Party could only have come from the Labor Party.
I'm advised that there are several statutory declarations to attest to racial comments made by Morrison at the time that we can't have a Lebanese person in Cook. The state executive voted 12-11 not to endorse Toke and ordered a modified selection process. The only way that Toke could get political exoneration for a future run was to agree to put his numbers behind Morrison. Morrison met with David Clark and I and promised various things. Of course, he took our votes and never delivered. After the selection, Toke joined my staff. He subsequently also sued the newspapers for defamation. He won his cases, but this was cold comfort. Morrison, his cronies and the Liberal establishment in New South Wales had destroyed a good young man. I regret the day that Clark and I agreed to put Morrison into Cook. There is a putrid stench of corruption emanating from the New South Wales division of the Liberal Party. All of this under the eye of Philip Ruddock. As a former Attorney-General, I am appalled that he has allowed Morrison to bully his way to a situation where the next election has been put at risk, all to save Hawke's career. This is what it's all about. Hawke knows that if he faces a plebiscite pre-selection, he will lose. Morrison has railroaded federal executive into setting up a committee which not only endorsed Hawke, Lee and Zimmerman, but a second committee is now endorsing captain's picks in seats like Parramatta and Hughes that were scheduled for pre-selections this week. So what is the hold that Hawke has over Morrison? Good question, especially given Hawke's own corrupt antics in New South Wales. During a speech advocating a Federal Integrity Commission, I referred to Hawke's activities and the dealings of the Baulkham Hills branch. At a meeting in 2018, 10 members were admitted to the branch. This was confirmed in text messages from the branch secretary. Hawke was present at the meeting. He saw what went on. I am told there is video evidence of the meeting. I also have relevant documents, including correspondence sent to Morrison on the issue. After the meeting, the minutes were falsified to show that the 10 members were not accepted. Statutory declarations were provided to counter this falsity. The branch was eventually suspended by state executive. The branch president and secretary, both acolytes of Hawke, refused to provide statutory declarations. Despite clear evidence of fraud, Hawke's role in this process has never been fully disclosed. The New South Wales State Director has sat on this matter for years. Legal proceedings are now on foot, and I look forward to the day when Hawke will be required to give evidence under oath to explain his corrupt conduct. There is a very appropriate saying here: the fish stinks from the head. By now, you might be getting the picture that Morrison is not interested in the rules-based order. It is his way or the highway, an autocrat, a bully who has no moral compass. In addition, having been a critic of Morrison on a range of policy matters, I was a marked woman. I have known for a number of years of the machinations involving the PMO and others to move me on. Dom Perrottet's premiership is held together by a thread through a so-called unity deal with the keen Poulos left. For years, the Perrottets have railed against Hawke, threatening to prosecute the Baulkham Hills matter, but never delivering. In my public life, I have met ruthless people. Morrison tops the list, followed closely by Hawke. Morrison is not fit to be Prime Minister, and Hawke certainly is not fit to be a minister.
Senator Whish-Wilson.
Holy smokes. Acting Deputy President, I'm happy to offer another 5 minutes to Senator Fierravanti-Wells if she'd like to continue.
Geez, after that you can really understand why there's no commitment from the Coalition for a federal ICAC. Now here's what an avid media watcher will find interesting. Over the past couple of weeks, the Mean Girls story has received blanket coverage. I've heard Mean Girls used so often I feel like I'm back in 2004. In print alone, the front page coverage has been huge. Morrison himself was more than happy to keep that particular story front and centre.
I mean, the first... Where is Anthony Albanese? I mean, where is he?
But the day after last night's story time? Well, there's nothing here. Now maybe the story came in too late to make the front page. Maybe it'll be plastered over the front page tomorrow. And the next day, and the next day. But given how quickly it's moved down the page on the Sydney Morning Herald website, I'm not going to be holding my breath. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see.